Hello snowboarders of the internet, I am your host TC and today I will be reviewing the Signal Wampeater. This board is equipped with Signal's slight rise to early rocker, which in basic terms is just a rockered snowboard. So it's going to be really mellow in between your feet here, and as it works its way to the nose and the tail, that rocker is just going to get more extreme. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it easy to get in and out of turns, and it's going to help with float a ton. This board is offered in a 151, a 156, and a 159. I rode this board at Copper Mountain where we got about 4 inches of fresh snow the night before, which was on top of 8 inches of fresh snow from the day before that. So in the middle of the runs, it was perfectly groomed, but as you got to the edge of the run or even to the trees, it was fresh snow. Depending on which side of the mountain you were on, it was better than the other side just because of how it ended up blowing overnight and pretty much throughout the day, because it did get kind of windy about halfway through where it got really flat and then really sunny and it just couldn't make up its mind. So conditions were definitely variable, but the snow was nice and fast for most of the day there. I used my Ride Fuse boots and my Jones Mercury bindings. When we're talking flex on this board, it's at the middle of the road, maybe slightly stiffer than the middle of the road, possibly. And that just is because how wide this thing actually is. When I would torsionally go to flex this, it was even harder than that just because my boots barely made it to the edge. So it made getting leverage on this board pretty difficult and a little tricky. As you work your way out to the nose and the tail, it definitely felt like it softened up, especially with that more exaggerated rocker on the nose and the tail. It really kind of got a little chattery pretty much going into that stability portion as well, where it's definitely a lively board. Like, it's not going to be damp. You're going to feel pretty much everything under it. So if you're on that fresh, nice, fluffy snow, not a big problem. When you're on those smooth groomers, you're going to be chattering. You're going to feel everything there is to feel. This board really likes to stay on the ground, where that tail is super soft, especially because of that extra exaggerated rocker on it. A lot of that ollie power is coming from right in between your feet and that back foot in particular, where it's not gonna be able to rock back into it and really get any nice snap off that tail. It's more of you're doing all the work, pretty much made to feel like it wants to stay on the ground the whole time. It is fairly stable when you're ollieing into fresh powder. It doesn't really want to sink or anything like that. Just make sure you kind of lean back a little bit. If you're going to take this thing off a side hit, make sure that you come at it with speed and really set that edge, and don't rely on that tail too much because you might come up on your landing a little bit short. Remember to like, subscribe, click that bell, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of the content we have coming out. This board was actually the most fun to butter on just because of how soft that nose and that tail are. When you go to throw your weight into this thing, you don't have to work too hard to do it. Pretty much just throw it right past your inserts there on the nose and you'll be all good to go, especially in fresh powder. This nose bends quite a bit and it just holds you really well without having to do too much work. Same with on the tail. You don't have as much of a surface area to work with, especially because it's got this weird little cutout on the back there, but overall, it is really easy to butter with. You can just lean back. You don't even have to like throw your weight or anything like that into it. It'll just hold you. Now, don't expect a pop out on it just because this board is already rockered out, so it doesn't have all that energy stored up in it. So if you want to spin out of this, you're going to be doing a little bit extra work. This board isn't terrible at carving if you're on fresh snow or perfect groomers at a slow speed, but if you go on anything else with it, you're gonna end up getting bounced around quite a bit. On those short, quick carves, it feels a little bit slow edge to edge, especially on the smooth groomers. When you're in fresh powder, it doesn't feel anything too out of the ordinary. It'll get over for you, no problem there. When you're going to those medium and larger carves, it'll handle them, especially on smooth groomers. Just make sure you're not going too fast. It'll start getting chattery on you, that sort of thing. You can do medium and large carves and fresh pow, no problem there, as long as you don't have anything uneven under the snow or any firm bits of snow on top either, just because it gets a little bit loose and a little bit squirrely. Now you can Euro carve on this thing. Just make sure you look where you're going. If you hit any sort of uneven snow, this nose is gonna buckle on you and you're just gonna get folded and go right over the handlebars there. rider in mind. This board is made for that person that already has a full quiver. They just need something to take on that lower angle pow and pretty much just ride it in the morning before they have to get back to work in the afternoon. They're not taking this thing out when it's getting all chewed up or the day after, anything like that. They might take it out to hunt for scraps, but it's gonna be a really empty day if they're doing that. Otherwise, this thing's not gonna be as versatile as they're hoping. If you're looking for another way to get involved in the community, head on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP. What is it, you ask? Sure, I could explain it here, but we have a great video over there getting into it really in depth. It wasn't my favorite board out there. It did swivel around in the trees really well, but foot steering this thing was kind of a bitch, honestly, where it was real hard for me, especially because I have that smaller footprint boot. Just wasn't really made for it. But going around in the trees in that fresh snow, it did just fine. I know Signal has more of a reputation for making park boards, but I mean, that is for a reason in my opinion, where their park boards are awesome. This one, not so much in my opinion. Comparable boards: the Ride Warpig, the Libtech Orca, and the Jones Mind Expander. Recommended bindings: the Union Force, the Ride C6, and the K2 Bond. This has been my review for the Signal Wampeater. If you're already sold on this board but are just unsure of what bindings to pick up, why don't you go check out one of the videos for the recommended bindings.